This house of pain. That's probably an aggressive way of really putting it, to be honest. Today is going to be a goodie. I will say that. There is quite a bit that we're going to be showing off today. And welcome, Whisper. No. Again, man, it's going to be good. The good thing is I have an outline, and we are essentially going to kind of follow that top down. There are a number of timestamps that we are going to listen to. There are screenshots we will show. And on top of which, there is also a word that I was able to hear back on from the Echo team. Now, whether that was answered by SoD or by a source close to the situation or someone from the management team, we were able to actually get some Q&As, some questions and answers from their team. And we will also be showing that off as well. And a few more things. I think that this is going to be overall a good show. And again, I'm going to allow just a few minutes or a little bit of time here for people to get loaded in, because I'm sure however many will probably be interested in hearing what we have to say. And as always, if you guys enjoy, or if you are readying yourself to enjoy, make sure you help us out. Throw us up, because it helps out a lot by getting this out to that. But the one thing that I do want to speak on specifically is going to be that the objective of what we Stannis Sentius on top, jeez. The objective that we're going to focus on covering today is not necessarily going to be, proving one side right or wrong. To me, it's really about, and I will say this, I did have the opportunity to speak to SoD a couple times since this situation fiasco came to light. And one of the things that was very clear to me on my intent for covering this was primarily because, as pretty much I think everyone knows at this point, there was only one side that has been covered thus far. Objectively, that's the only way that anyone can really look at it. You've only heard essentially from one person that was involved in the situation, specifically being Northern, and another who was an XR4 of Echo at the time. So I guess maybe a secondary source in some regards. And there's been some material that has been shared. But ultimately, there's really just been one side, right? And for me, I have always felt that, one of the most important aspects of, especially when you're covering a big story, and maybe you could even argue for any story for that matter, but I do think that there is a lot more added weight to this particular story because of how it was covered, and at the same time, how it was not covered. And that is to say, as I said in a previous video, that the challenge for me is in seeing that there was really only, again, one side that was covered. And it very much felt as though the takeaway from that one side was we shared our story, a bunch of people believed the story, and then that story just ran away, right? It was almost kind of like this judge, jury, executioner, and a verdict was established all within a 2-hour stream, right? And I think I don't know if the word despicable is maybe the right word to use. I think for me, it's more about, did we do some due diligence here? Are we absolutely certain that this is the case? Without a shadow of a doubt. Like, there's nothing that could ever come up. There's nothing that could ever come out that would ever put any doubt in anyone's mind that what these people are accusing this individual of might be wrong, or maybe isn't fully truthful. And so for me, that is the premise of what we're going to talk about today. Again, it is not going to be, just to do some kind of he said, she said, or to say that Echo's right or the lights are right, or because to be fair and to be honest, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But what does matter is equally sharing both sides of a story. So again, that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, in order to do that, and more importantly so, we need to give some appropriate context here on how did everything start, and more importantly, what are the highlights to take away from what was initially introduced and what has been stated so far, so we can really and appropriately paint a picture. And again, we're going to run through this one pretty quick. But it is important for people to understand, because this is kind of going to be like, for those of you that are not familiar with the situation, we'll give you a quick highlight TLDR overview, and we're going to share with you a number of highlighted points before we get to essentially what the response is and a few other things. So again, tell your wife, tell your kids, tell your cousins twice removed. It's going to be a goodie. With that in mind, let's go ahead and start. So we are going to be showing off a couple things here, right? So we have our outline, and we're going to kind of start top down, if you will. I think that probably is most appropriate at this point. Let me see. Can I skadoosh slightly? Cool. I'm going to be honest. I wish I could put this like way over here, but that's all right. We'll make do. So let's give an overview real quick on what has transpired thus far, because again, that part is incredibly important. So when we look at this, right, we have the initial act was that Bunny was kicked from Echo, which happened before speaking with the lights, right? This was one of the first initial accounts of what kind of started this whole thing. Because up until this point, there was no belief that I had seen, anything that had been shown thus far, where the lights were ever going to speak on this, unless it was something that Bunny had reached out to, which was essentially stated. And then, shortly after, Bunny joined EIS. Okay. Bunny then stated that Northern Light gave access to the account and found, and again, this is access to them so they could take a look, found that SoD was sending himself, and again, this is what Bunny had claimed, right, based on some screenshots, himself DTs, right, dragon tickets. Spamming DMs with old favorited battle reports, right, words from Bunny, deleting DMs, deleting mails. Now, I think one angle to the situation that is incredibly important to understand here, and I don't know if this is necessarily something that has been talked about or maybe has been mentioned in any kind of, big spotlighted situation, is that it almost feels like one angle could say, well, okay, like disgruntled employee takes shots at company. And I think it's fair to say that that is one angle you could look at here. And then it's like, okay, well, are there ulterior motives? It's like almost one of those things where it's like, you watch those shows or you hear about situations like that, and then it's almost like, okay, well, where's the quality level of integrity and value that you would assign a situation like that? Which again isn't to say that it's right or wrong, or it's truthful or false, but I do think that is at least one angle to bring up that is relevant to the situation. So we continue. Bunny spoke to the lights to see if they would come forward about feeling they were scammed by SoD. Okay. Northern Light agrees, tells this information to Princess and Wahid, and Bunny shares information with them as well that SoD had scammed them. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Then we get where Northern Light provided screenshots and 2 videos in question. And the videos that were provided dated back to around October, mid-October of last year, right? So we're talking about 11 months ago. Some of the screenshots provided were not of any kind of expansive conversations with SoD, which, to be fair, I part of me feels as though if you're going to claim that someone scammed you, which I think is a fair and objective viewpoint to bring up, is that you'd like to believe that there was some kind of paper trail and communication that had transpired to indicate that this person truly and intentionally was scamming you. And that's just me looking at it from the outside, because as I stated, I don't really care who's right or wrong. But I think what's important to take away is was there a level of intent, and was there a follow through on the intent, and did at any point Northern Light have any kind of conversation or mention these things and these worries, and then came to the conclusion that like, oh no, this was just absolutely wrong. And I think that's fair to ask. But again, right, that is what was stated. Okay. Now, there's a part here that I want to point out, because there's something important that we're going to kind of highlight as we continue to go through. So at 1337 to 1441, and again, we'll link this as well in a source, right? This was in Princess's live stream, right? So let's go to 1337 here, because I think it's really important that people hear this, because I think the challenge here is when you hear what they're going to say, you will understand how what started off as they claim, right, drama, rumor stories, general gossip, right? That's for what my understanding is of what some things that they have said, or what the YAPCAST is about, and just kind of general talking and tea. However, listen to what they say, and more importantly, listen to the tone that is expressed in this clip.
I was our foreign loyal, so I didn't take any screenshot, but I just talked to Northern and she confirmed it. So this was the first mail we got yesterday, and we were like, what?
Yeah, so you can see logging on to Northern and Southern's accounts. Well, I guess you'll see about Southern logging onto these accounts, sending himself dragon tickets from their accounts. And then trying to hide it with battle reports.
And we have more screenshots, guys. It's not like that we have only here the saying of Bunny. We have the conversations with, I think, Northern Light. We have the videos. It was even, it gets even more and more crazy by time we go a little bit through this, guys. But it is really...
We have video of all the DMs as well. Scrolling through every single DM with SoD, and you can see the dragon tickets flying every single day back to SoD, back to SoD, back to SoD. So you'll see videos, you'll see screenshots, you'll see, we got it all.
We got it. And we have to make a little bit the translation because...
Okay. Now, the reason I wanted you guys to hear this clip is because it sets the tone for the entire stream within the first 15 minutes. Because if you remember in the beginning of the stream, it was kind of loading up and I think pulling up some player profiles and entering in some player IDs. But once they got going for those first few minutes, maybe you could argue within the first 5 minutes of them actually talking, what you hear in the tone and in the way that and in their word choice was almost as though, and again, some of you might take it differently. How I interpreted that was a level of excitement, a level of energy, a level of confidence, a level of comfortability in what they were going to be showing. And dare I say, it almost sounded like they had made their minds up already. That they had already decided that SoD was guilty before they showed anything. Again, that's just my take. That's just how it sounds to me. That's how the tone, that's the interpretation I got from it. And so, again, to me, right, that's how it came off. Okay. Next clip, right? So there was a sending battle reports one here at 31:46 that we're going to take a listen to, okay? So here we go on this one.
Stuff like this.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. He's sending the battle reports that have 12 million merits on them. It's not even like he's doing something that are like saving good battle reports. He's just using them to hide.
Okay. Now, I think it's fair to say that when most of us saw this for the first time, you would probably think to yourself, like, damn, like that's pretty damning. I think I had even said as well when I did my video coverage that this was, like, it didn't look good, right, initially for what was being shown. But at the same time, I couldn't think of anything else for maybe why something like that was shown. Now, I had someone that had, I believe, from what I recall, made a comment either on a video or in one of the chats. And I don't think it got any upvotes or any, reactions or anything, but it was an interesting take on this where they said, well, if they were investing money and they were focusing on things like war pets, couldn't this have been March testing? And I thought, okay, that's an interesting take because I'll be honest, it wasn't something that I had ever really considered. Do I think that it could fit the bill? Okay, maybe. But to me, like I said, you see the video shown and it goes immediately to an accusation. And now it's like we're kind of seeing a trend here, right, being established as well, where, again, keep in mind, let's really put everything into appropriate context. Everything so far that is being talked about and is being shared is being done so from one side. That's it so far, right? It's just one side that has been shared. And technically it's one person who is, right, the source on that side that has shared this, and they have stated that, yes, this person was scamming me. Listen, I'm going to be honest. I don't know the last time that we were just crucifying people and immediately believing, and I don't care what side it is, because like I said, it doesn't matter to me. But what I find absolutely hilarious is that a number of people just took the ball and ran with it. They're just like, oh man, like let's just eat this sob story up. Like this is 100% truthful. We don't need to hear from anyone else. We don't need to ask anyone else. Why? Because we have the one smoking gun where nothing else is required. Due diligence, screw that. Speak to someone else from the other side. Oh, F that. That's not even needed. Let's just make our entire argument and case around one side. That is where I find it almost feels like convenient to take the easier path than the harder path, right? Okay. But again, right, maybe that commenter's right, maybe they're not. But it did bring up a question on like, okay, well, maybe there is something there. Possibly. Okay. So now there was another one we're going to listen to, right? So accounts are ransacked, 3450 that we're going to take a listen to. Okay. So this one here, 47. Ooh, hang on, that was 3450 only if I could count appropriately. Here we go.
Was always followed by 5 battle reports. I had both you and Nor's account get some, but got too many, needed finish. I needed finish alliance mobilization. So yeah, this was kind of like
Yeah, I mean, if it would have happened once, that would have made sense, but not when I mean, you guys just saw it, both accounts were just ransacked over a period of a year.
Okay. Let's be real here. Ransacked, I think, is not the right word, nor the right level of word choice to appropriately speak to what actually happened. Now, the important takeaway here, right? When you say ransack to me, that means they took you for every penny. That clearly did not happen unless there's more unknown and unseen evidence that can indicate that somewhere else. What we've seen is a number of dragon tickets that I think some people said might have totaled around a couple $1,000s, right? Give or take. We know that we've seen receipts that Jason provided from that were sent to him via Northern, from what we understand, that was around, I think, $4,400 or $4,500, something around there, right? That was sent to SoD. Okay. Do we think that that's all the money that was spent on the account, whether that's from Northern, Southern, and or SoD and anyone else who might have been, flying and making, pit stops and donation checks in the mailbox? I think that's hard. I think that's a hard sell. I think if you're playing the percentages logically, that wouldn't make sense. I think we can easily argue that a lot more money has been spent, which almost makes this amount, you could say, insignificant or very small is probably a better word choice. Now, obviously, we don't know the total amount that has been spent. Now, we can guesstimate. For those of you that remember, I did a video on this where I went around and I asked, I think, the top 200 players, like, what was the total amount of money they spent on their accounts, and then what was the average amount of monthly spending that they were doing. You could use that as a reference point if you look at where Northern's power is. And again, maybe that could be a bare minimum. But again, without diving too far down that rabbit hole, the point here is I think the word ransacked was unfairly and unjustly used in this particular situation. I don't think that it's anywhere near that level. Okay. Then I want to get to 47, right? So this is where we get to, let me see where I have 47 even. Okay. So let's get to 47 even here. Here we go.
What can I
You
tell?
are here. You are here.
I mean, guys, it is my channel, my content. We do what we want here, and if you don't like it, that is totally fine. We do enjoy the drama, and if there is drama out, we will say it. And people can definitely make they can make their statement. They have also the chance here in the chat to tell that. It's just like, for us, it was pretty obvious. If I get any proof for that, there's any understanding for all that multiple sendings, what we seeing on the video, I mean, can really feel free to reach out to us. We had that info, what we got from Northern and Southern, so.
Yeah. So I think when you hear that, keep in mind, and I've said this before, right? Princess can do, just like any creator, can do whatever they want on their channel. They can put out any other type of content that they want. However, one of the most important things that I think people need to understand, and I said this as well during my live stream and then my eventual coverage of the SoD response as well from the announcement, is that when you're covering a story, and let's just put it into specific context here, when you're covering this story, which is massive and massive for the community, and probably one of the biggest stories that we've seen, and you're only taking accounts from one side, it doesn't do the story justice. It doesn't do the coverage justice. It doesn't really do anything justice, because what you could then argue is that Princess just took Light's side. It didn't matter if there was enough evidence or not. It didn't matter if they were right or wrong. Right? She heard a sob story, and maybe there was some emotions there, and decided, you know what? You've shown me a video of this. You've painted this picture for me. Okay, that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and cover it. It could have been nothing more than that, or exactly that. And that's, again, to reiterate, why I think it's important to cover both sides and to hear from both sides. Because I can tell you what we're going to be showing you shortly and what we're going to talk about will definitely make you wonder, and it will make you challenge your initial thoughts and initial beliefs in who you thought was in the right and in the wrong. And that's all, like we've said from the beginning, that I hope to accomplish, is just to share another side, and then the pieces can fall where they may. But I just didn't think that it was right or professional in any capacity to only share one side of the story. Okay. Then we get to some people's takes, and I think these are pretty important, right? So let's go to 5545 real quick. Okay, so this is Ray Cloud's take.
Saw this like this, you know.
I mean, that is what
So
a
it's
lot
not-
of people told, but Echo is defending it, right? They say there is something not.
Of course
Yeah, I
they are
mean-
defending him because they are done pretty much, right? This is like destroying the reputation, right? If the integrity of the alliance is in danger just because of one R5 doing this.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is the integrity comes into play, right? Like if you can't trust how someone's acting towards someone that trusted them, how do you trust them as allies or something like that?
I mean, you can't like you can't sit there and go,
Listen, I know this is low-hanging fruit, but I will say this, right? And I've said this before, right? My relationship with Princess is cordial, right? I've never really said anything, I would say bad at all to pretty much any creator for that matter. Even though I know there's been a few kind of aggressive pokes from Princess to me. Okay. I don't know Princess that well enough to say, like, I know this person's experience and how they handle situations. I know how they deal with them. The same goes for Wahid. Now, I've had a couple conversations with Wahid, and Wahid has always just come off nice to me. But I still don't know how Wahid is as a person, right? It's not like we've spent time together. It's not as though I know, how this person has handled previous situations or the types of experiences that she has brought with her up to this point. But what I will say here is that, I mean, it just feels like an L take there, right? Like there's just no way to know in any situation, the truth of what was said. And for me, like I said, it's just it hurts to see. But let's continue.
go like, oh, this is gonna superly affect Echo because none of their players have like care. Like they've been doxing people, they've been openly racist, they have R4s in their teams doing this. They have R4s joining Discords, telling people to kill themselves, like all kinds of stuff, and they'll just sit there and defend it all day in the Discord and chat.
I agree with you, Dark.
And so this, they'll come out, they'll see it all, they'll go, oh, that looks kind of bad. That's yikes, and then they'll just brush it under the rug because they don't care.
Yeah, it will not affect Echo. You're right, because the people who are joining Echo, I mean,
But what
it's
it
not
does
like
do is it shows,
right?
yeah, it shows SoD's character though, and it kind of exposes how he really is.
So again, I just want to point this out, right? That you heard from Ray Cloud and Dark. And I think the important thing here, again, to take away is, like, for example, Dark says that it exposes his character and tells people how he really is, referencing to this particular situation. Again, let's really appropriate everything. Nothing has been proven up to this point. Why? Because we've only heard from one side, and there hasn't been any direct proof that SoD scammed them outside of one party saying that they did, and their evidence for that is to show that Dragon tickets were transferred. I mean, again, let's really objectively look at the situation here. There's no paper trail of showing that, again, this was done in any malicious way. There's no confronting that we've seen just yet, currently, of, for example, the lights saying, like, going to SoD and saying, well, hey, why are you doing this? This was our original agreement. I don't understand why you're purchasing these things and transferring them. And then SoD doesn't have any kind of an excuse, or better yet, SoD lies and then continues to do it. And then I think another angle of understanding is that, well, if these things were happening for this long of a period, why didn't the lights, if the lights truly felt they were being scammed, and let's say they just didn't want to have any more conversations with SoD, they could have just changed their passwords and not allowed SoD to get access anymore. Why are you waiting almost a year? I think these are fair questions to ask. That's what we're saying. But up until this point, I don't see anything that to me is proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that SoD was scamming. Is there insinuation? Can we lean to one side and say this doesn't look that good? Okay, fair. Absolutely. No disagreement. I can agree there. We said this as well previously. But does that mean that this person was truly doing what this one individual claims that they were? I don't see it. Objectively, I don't see enough to where we can just blanketly label SoD or anyone else in a similar situation as saying, okay, well, yeah, they're just absolutely scamming. Now, maybe it would have been different if, for example, Princess of Wahid had reached out to Echo and reached out to SoD and said, hey, these are the accusations that are being made right now. What's your response? Can you give us something? Maybe they would have. Maybe they would have taken a moment or an opportunity to say, like, no, that's not true. Let me show you some screenshots that show you a different story. But up until this point, I don't see anything, right, that is showing, without a shadow of a doubt, that you would consider is a smoking gun. Now, if there's one out there, I'd love to see it. But I think at the moment, all you really have is, what would be conjecture? I have to Google that and look that up just to make sure I'm using that word right. But basically to say that, okay, well, it's leaning on one side. Okay, I think that's fair. Okay. Let's go 101.29, right? This is Slor's take on the situation. Okay. Here we go.
If you guys want to know the story behind the lights, they started in BXS. Then they went, because BXS had like crazy amount of players. Then Neff took them, and then Neff called them a drunk. And then Neff left them, came to us. And then they went to TFS, and then they went to Echo. And I was like, why the fuck would they end up in Echo? And one of the most shady guys in the game. I would never trust SoD. Dark knows that. Everyone knows I will never trust that kid. He's a kid. You know what I mean? Look at what. Look at that.
I knew not to trust him game wise, but seeing the money sent is just crazy.
Bro, you're a leader and you're scamming your own players. You're fucking pathetic.
Yeah, scamming your own players is that's crazy.
We're supposed to protect our players, not fucking scam them. You know what I mean?
Okay. So again, that's Slor. Again, I feel like most of you here are noticing this trend. And the trend that is being established and was established around the first 5 minutes of the stream was that we have already decided SoD's and Echo's fate. And the people that came on felt similarly, that they had already decided SoD and Echo's fate. And that all they needed to do is to hear from one person and only one side of the story to make their decision. I mean, some may call that gullible. Some may call that irresponsible. I think objectively speaking, that's fair to have that take. Because again, we've only seen one side. Okay. Right? And again, I didn't think that the one side, objectively speaking, was any level of a smoking gun. I think that if you saw those without any level of context, you would think, okay, well, there's some transfers that are happening. Okay, I mean, we've seen transfers before. There's some reports that are in there. Okay, maybe there could be something going on. But do we think that you're just immediately going to go to, okay, well, yeah, like this person is obviously scamming them, right? What if you saw the same situation on someone else's account, but then there was tickets going from one person back over to Northern. My point is that there's a serious level of unknown here. There's a serious level of gray area that speaks to a relationship between SoD, Echo, any other particular individuals that stand out, and the lights. And I think the saddest part to me is that we don't know anything about this relationship, yet a very small snippet, a portion of said relationship was shared from one side. And now all of a sudden we're just like, yo, we're experts. We know everything. Oh, gotcha. And it's just like, wait, what are we talking about here? How asinine is that to think and believe that we are all of a sudden the judge, jury, and executioners in this fairy tale story when we don't have anywhere near the full picture? That is what is crazy to me. But maybe that's just me. Okay. Again, we're almost done here. We're going to get to Echo's share. So the last one I want to listen to here is Jason's take. This is 129.23 that we're going to pull up. Okay.
What is your opinion about all that? I mean, you have some experience with them as well.
Yeah, look, all I'm gonna say is he tried to beat me and he can't beat me. You feel me? Like he's short on
Oh
knowledge
my
right now.
god. Short.
Listen, man, I'm gonna let our boy Jay Geezy speak. But I just want to point out, man, and again, like I said, because it doesn't matter to me. I don't care who's right or wrong in this situation, right? As we stated this entire time, we just want to share both sides. This was freaking diabolically hilarious. Like, Jay Geezy to me is going to go down in history for one of the absolutely most funniest names for someone's acronym in game. And I'm going to be honest, man, like I was there for it because it was funny. Like, you can't deny that objectively. That was pretty freaking hilarious. I know I was cracking up when I heard that. Okay. Single player, what's up, man? Thank you so much for the dono. I appreciate. Jason Noob. Jeez. I'm imagining that's coming out of love. Okay, let's finish this up.
$10.
But it is some crazy stuff, right, Jason?
Yeah. I mean, the way SoD's always been is he always looks out for SoD, nothing else. Like that's just how he is as a person. We all know this. So
Yeah.
it doesn't really shock me. I haven't seen him, like when I was with him, I haven't seen him actually do something scummy like this. But it wouldn't like shock me to know that he did. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
I was shocked. I didn't expect that.
And I want to point something out here. Usually, when you hear someone speak their mind, and I will give respect here, and I think respect and props are due to Jason for the first thing that he said. Because oftentimes, the first thing that we say is how we feel. And I very much believe that what Jason said there, and that he's never seen SoD do anything like that, is absolutely truthful, right? Unless he comes out and says, no, JK, I was just joking. And so, to me, it feels like it sucks to diminish that with obviously the next line, unless maybe he does truly believe that it's like, hey, man, I've never seen SoD do anything. But at the same time, to me, it almost just feels hypocritical, right? It feels like we're contradicting ourselves there in the same sentence by, on one hand, saying, no, man, I've never seen him do anything like this. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, yeah, no, but I could totally see it happening. It's like what? Like, where? I'm just curious, like, where are we going with that? Like, just that entire line was like the definition of contradictory in itself. Okay, but so be it. That's how he feels. Okay, fair. Okay, now we're going to get into Echo's views, right? We've kind of laid the groundwork for what has been shared from one side, statements that have been had from one side so far. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's hear what Echo has to say on the situation. Okay, so Echo's views at the moment. So there's a couple here that we have, right? And then we're going to get to the Q&A here in a bit. So number one, which in this case would be, okay, so it had been 4+ seasons of the lights being inactive enough to have pilots. Okay. So again, this was stated. Let me clarify. Echo's views were stated internally. So this was shared with me from Echo sources on what had transpired between them and the lights, and what they noticed, what they saw, what was received, what was sent, etc. Okay, so the first line here is, right, they had been 4+ seasons of them being inactive, right, enough to have pilots on the account to maintain and sustain the level and the quality of the accounts. Okay, so be it. I mean, again, one of the things that I would have loved to be able to ask Northern, and I'll show you some screenshots here in a moment. Fortunately, haven't heard anything back from my first question that was sent over 2 weeks ago. And they did, Northern did initially accept my friend request, but then removed the friend request after I had asked one question. So kind of difficult to ask any follow-ups when you don't necessarily get an answer to the first question. However, I had reached out to Northern, and I'll show that screenshot in a bit, back, I think it was on the 4th or the 5th, right? Because I wanted to try and hear from the other side first before I had ever come out and made a video, which again, I think is important. Okay, now in the event if Northern or the lights had been inactive for a number of seasons, if that is true, could there have been some misinterpretation on what was happening in the DMs? Possibly. Could there have been a prearranged agreement, whether it was said or unsaid, between the lights, SoD, and whomever else? Okay, maybe. Did the lights feel that that was violated? Quite possibly. The challenge here is that, like I said, we don't know enough, right? That's what we're really coming down to, is that we don't understand enough about the relationship that they had to really be able to clearly paint a picture on what small amount of information was provided and displayed to us from one side. I think that's fair to say. Okay, the next one. They were not spending on their accounts for the most part or at all during this time. Now, there was a screenshot that we will be sharing shortly that claims that the lights had asked SoD or had informed someone from Echo that they can stop spending on the accounts, which was around April or so of this year, because they were going to be coming back and being active. Now, obviously, we'd have to see a screenshot of that in order to indicate and to provide some validity to it. But again, right, that was one of the claims. Okay. The thought was that pilots would be reimbursed for their investment once the lights came back and were active. Okay, that's interesting, because we know that the lights did reimburse SoD, send him money, because Jason had shared those receipts that Northern provided. Okay, so that's interesting. Some dots are connecting now, right? There's a little bit of truth here that we're figuring out. Okay. Now let's get to the Echo Q&A portion. So again, before we show, and I'll kind of show these one at a time. These were questions that I had asked of the Echo team, and they were taken amongst their team, whether that was the management or if it was other sources that were close to the situation. And the answers I got back was provided to me from their team, right? So whether or not SoD was involved in that, right, I don't know. I had asked some questions and I was replied to by one of the members. Okay. So here's the first question that I had asked. What was the reason behind SoD sending March reports in the game DMs? As I'm sure he knows by now, some others claimed it was to hide transfers made. Okay. Again, that was one of the main questions that people had and were asking, and then other people just felt that they had already made their mind up. Okay, fair enough. Here's the answer I got back from the Echo team. They said that A, it was to check pet reports, as most spending was on pets, excuse me. The lights were not up to date on pet investing due to being pretty AFK and unaware of how pets worked. Now that's interesting because if they were inactive for those number of seasons, which again, we'd have to be able to have an opportunity to ask Northern Light or any of the lights for that matter, but can't really ask someone a question if they don't reply to you in the first place. So, but again, that would have been one of the things I would have asked them is, okay, well, how active were you over the past couple of seasons? I think that would be a fair question because I think if they answer with, yes, we were inactive over these past couple of seasons, I think that adds more validity to this. If they say, no, we were absolutely active, we were on all the time, and we were spending and updating and maintaining our accounts. Okay, well, then that tells us a different story. Okay. They started to be more inactive around the time proper pet builds were being figured out. Okay. Other reports in DMs include row reports, reports of darklings, correct that, and random PvP shiitake mushrooms. Even the lights dropped reports, so there was a lot. Oh, sorry, I was like building that up to go more, but it ended with there was a lot. Okay. Now, obviously, in order to see those things, we would need to be able to go back a little bit farther in the DMs before October of 2024 to see if there's any truth to that. Okay. But again, right, this is the claim. And then on top of that, did Northern Light at any point share any reports themselves? Again, those are questions we don't have answers to. And as I've stated, once again, especially for the new peeps joining us, which is welcome. As always, if you guys enjoy, help us out, throw us out. Helps out a lot, thanks. Is that it doesn't matter to me. Who's right, who's wrong, who's not right, who's not wrong. Doesn't matter to me what side comes out on top. But what does matter to me is that we at least are able to hear from both sides, right? And this is the other side, to the only up to this point, one side that has been shared with. Okay, so that was answers to the first question. Let's go to the second question I had asked. Okay. So the second question I asked was, okay, the approximately $4,200 sent to SoD was a reimbursement at the very least, a partial amount of the total for the amount he had already spent on the accounts. Oops, I think there was supposed to be a question mark there. There we go. It's supposed to be a question mark. Okay. So what's the answer here, right? So apparently this was supposed to be a reimbursement for the amount he had already spent. Right? Was that supposed to be? Okay. So here's the answer we got for that. Okay. When they saw a mail, i.e. the lights, they sent money via PayPal, but not always. Okay. I mean, they sent it via PayPal that way. I think that's fair to say that seems to be at least one method that was used. Okay. Due to their inactivity mentioned before, they may not have seen all of the mails, I imagine in this case. For slightly larger purchases, 500 plus USD, someone would notify them. Okay. Given that mails are in game, they can also see the receipts. Okay. So, I mean, from Echo's view on the situation, the money that was sent, right, was a reimbursement. And from their position, they clarified on some of the amounts that were spent and the fact that they didn't always reimburse at a point. Okay, take that what you will. Okay, the next question we asked. Okay. Were there any strings attached to this amount sent to SoD? As in the lights expecting him to reinvest that money on their accounts? Or was this for him to keep regardless of whether he spent any of it in game, right? Because the understanding that we've seen already is that SoD and whomever else, or however many other people, spent money on the Lights accounts to maintain and sustain them to whatever level of degree they did. Okay. So the answer I got here from them was he spent on their accounts before getting anything back, if at all. Okay. One time he topped up a large amount of tickets, which were supposed to be for his account, some 185, lots of dailies, etc., and notified them that he needed to send those tickets back to himself. Okay. They acknowledged. And again, there's been some screenshots that were shown, and I also want to be clear here. There was a number of screenshots that were shared. I believe supposedly by SoD, and I think it was on their Alliance or their Kingdom Discord. And there were a number of screenshots that, from what I understand, which is up to all of them, that were shared with me. From the screenshots I saw, it paints a little bit different of a picture, but at the same time is not everything that of course I would even like to see. But we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so what's the next question that we had asked Echo? So the next question we asked them is, okay, given there are multiple ticket transfers in the videos that Princess Wahid showed from Northern Light's account to SoD's, was this due to them being cheaper, buying them on their account? Were all of them accidental purchases or something else? Again, I think this is a fair question to ask because we don't know. We've only heard from one side. And I guess what I should say is that we do know as we've heard from one, we know what we've heard from one side. There we go. I had to figure out how to appropriately say that one. Okay, so what's the answer? So this is the response I got. I think that's it. Okay. So it's the same cost, right, that was stated, but out of generosity. Sometimes he would top up their accounts to leave them with coins, which I didn't actually think about before. But okay, I can understand that, right? If you're topping them up, you're leaving them with coins, even if you're transferring, they still have the coins. Okay. He valued and respected them for allowing the account usage to benefit the Alliance, and it was a form of appreciation. Okay. There was once a bond between SoD and the Lights of trust and friendship. He's not sure what changed in the end. Okay. Okay. So, again, right, not necessarily, it looks like really the top one here in A, kind of answers a portion of the question. However, we know that at least some of the tickets that were transferred were accidental purchases. Some of the other ones, we don't know, right? At least at this time. Okay. Now, let me get to what some of my thoughts are that I want to share. And then I think we have one or two more sections to go. And we have a very important question that we're going to ask at the end. Okay? So here's some of my thoughts that I have. I don't know how. Okay, good. So I have some below this. Okay. So the first one I have here is, oh yeah. So let me clarify the screenshot portion because people will ask me about that. As in, boss, are you going to share any screenshots? Is, someone from Echo going to come on? Listen, I spoke, and I can say this part. This part is okay for me to say. So when I had some conversations with SoD, one of the questions I asked, because I believe he and their team were already aware that I had been sent these screenshots and a bunch of information from some people within Echo. Not maliciously to go against them, but, I'm sure these people felt like, hey, if someone might cover the situation, at least another side, then, it might be BN. Or maybe I was just the first person they thought of. Who knows? I want to be very clear here, because my conversations with SoD was basically that he just doesn't care. Like, not care about what is being, like, not care about the act of something that is being viewed by some people as, you know, either a misunderstanding or being viewed in some negative light, but just that he doesn't care for the attention. He doesn't care about any of the drama. He didn't even want, you know, he wasn't even expecting any follow-up to be done to the situation as a whole. You know, he cares about his members. He cares about the alliance. He cares about the kingdom. You know, he doesn't really care about, you know, making any more of a deal of it than it already has, right? This was my understanding from conversating with him. Which, again, I feel like you're going to have two takes on a situation like this. You're either going to really care and you really want to defend yourself to the public, or you're not going to care about the public and maybe just handle things internally. Okay. You know, it's kind of up to each person to decide on how they want to approach it. Now, the screenshot portion, as I'm sure these may or may not come out at some point, it was asked of me by the Echo team to, not share any of the screenshots, just due to them having a lot of personal information in them. Things like, I can broadly say things like account numbers, full names, addresses. There was a decent amount of personal things that were there. Now, again, if those come to light some other way, that's fine. It won't be by me. And again, I respected that. What I can tell you from the screenshots I did see is, as I stated, it tells a different, and I feel like a more complex story than we all probably have enough time to really understand. Even from the screenshots they shared, there are still a number of questions that I have for both sides. And part of that is because it would take a lot more screenshots and a lot more understanding of the relationship and the conversations that were had in order to really get a good grasp on everything. And for me, that is the most important thing, is that there just hasn't been enough shared. There hasn't been enough shown that, to me, indicates, like we've stated, without a shadow of a doubt and with 100% absolute certainty, that SoD scammed the lights. I think what we can state that has been done is that you have one side that has shared one side of a story and took their ball and ran with it and essentially defamed. No, I shouldn't say defamed. I should say made an accusatory attempt to defame, or sorry, an accusation, and therefore, by extension, an attempt to defame SoD, and probably by greater lengths, Echo. That we know has been done. And that is without a shadow of a doubt. And I think for me, that is one of the most disappointing aspects of the entire story, is that you have one person that shares something with you from one side of a whole, and you just immediately believe them. Right? And this is very important. It's not to say that the lights are wrong or they're right. It's not to say that Bunny is wrong or right. What it only is to say is that this is one piece of a greater whole. Just like in what I shared with Echo. Just because they shared that doesn't mean I believe Echo or I believe the lights. But I do think it's important to at least hear both sides out. And again, this is a little bit different because part of it is that the lights were able to share some screenshots versus us not being able to see, or at least me, I should say, being able to share any screenshots with you, right, from their team out of respect for SoD and the Echo's team wishes, which, okay, that's fine. And, you know, it's not to say that my voice has any value in me telling you that the screenshots I saw tell a different and a more complex story, which isn't to say that the screenshots overwhelmingly all of a sudden lean in Echo's favor and are not in the Light's favor, or that they lean to one side or the other. But it's just to simply say that there's a lot more to the story than what has been told thus far. And that's why I say that I'm incredibly disappointed in the individuals that have claimed that it's already over, that have portrayed this judge, jury, and executioner approach to a situation that demands a professional level of respect and integrity in how we handle, and due diligence in how we handle reporting and talking about something. I mean, keep an keep in mind, anyone can talk about anything, right? We're not speech gating in a sense, but I do think it's important that when you're going to cover something, that you do it in an honest and in an earnest way. And you don't just do it from like this one track mindset where you have blinders on and you're only seeing what's right in front of you. Because I think that part is more damning and more telling of how you approach situations than it is for the people that you're accusing. I digress. Okay. The second piece here, and then I'm definitely going to read some chat too as well, because I know you guys have been talking. So, okay, some of the receipts showed that SoD did purchase Dragon tickets, and the amounts did line up. From the screenshots I saw, I can broadly speak to that. When I looked at timestamps, when I looked at the amounts that were spent, and then the screenshots that indicated, you could see that some of them, not all of them, again, we're going to be fair all the way across the board, some of them did line up. Okay. And then this is where we get to this line that we stated earlier, which is that supposedly the Lights said to stop spending on their accounts around, I believe this is April 27th to 25. That was from one of the screenshots I saw, as they would be coming back to do it themselves. Okay. Again, you could take that for what it's worth. I understand that you probably would want to see something in order to validate that. To be fair, I would like to see something as well that was, them saying that at some point. And part of me feels like I might have seen something, but I'm not remembering now, so I'm not going to speak to that effect. But I think showing something like that, if they did in fact say that, then I think that would help that portion and that at least that point. And then obviously the one I stated before, right? No absolute proof has been provided to show that SoD scammed the Lights. And this was something that I had mentioned, which was one take could be, right? If the Lights never said anything for almost a year, they could have seen nothing wrong, or it could have been passively agreed upon by both parties. And that's where I think you start getting into some of that gray area territory where this question, this point speaks to everything we don't know about the relationship that went on for however long between the Lights, SoD, and Echo. I mean, I think if you look at this at face value, the Lights had to trust SoD enough, and whomever else, to allow access to the account. Okay. I think that's a fact. I mean, why else would you allow someone access to your account in any capacity? Okay. Unless maybe, I don't know, maybe there's just like, okay, I'm just going to give you access to my account, which is a super trustworthy thing, and I don't care what you do on it as long as you spend money. Okay, well, maybe. I mean, from what I've heard from people that have spoke about the Lights, that doesn't necessarily portray some of the characteristics I've seen, but all right. You then have some kind of a working relationship between the two parties and or two or more parties at this point. And both people are spending on the account. I think that's fair to say at minimum. And this goes on for however long. It's just, to me, it feels like there's a lot more there, is my point, than what has been briefly showed and or outlined and or accused from one party against the other. And that's why I think when you see Northern say that, like, yeah, I was scammed, respectfully, I take that with a grain of salt unless you can prove to me and show me a lot more than just tickets being transferred. Does it not look good? Okay, sure. You can sell me on that. Is it without a shadow of a doubt scamming with any level of intent to do so? No. You need to show me a lot more than that. Okay. So these were some of the questions I would have for the lights, right? If Northern ever, oh, sorry, and I'm going to show you guys some screenshots. I got screenshots. We're going to show some screenshots too, because I got all these things up here. I know some of you have been waiting for that. So we're going to show some screenshots here in a moment. But these are some questions that I would have for the lights. So, right, so I reached out on September 4th, no reply. I say, and I'm going to show the screenshot in a moment, right? They did accept the friend request, then removed some time after the question was asked, right? So I'd asked them a question, then they removed the friendship. There are videos, right, shared by the lights that show dates from 10/18, so this is October 18, 24. Right? If you felt this was wrong and you were getting scammed, why let it continue for almost a year? I think that's a fair question. One of the other questions I have is, were there other reports shared before October 18th? And did the lights ever share reports with SoD, or just in DMs, or on the, I guess, on that DM chain, right? That history, the feed. If so, this would establish a trend. Okay, if true, that the lights weren't active for the past number of seasons, which we'd have to ask, could they have misinterpreted the DM history? Okay. Why did Northern Light not share any expansive screenshots of their chat history with SoD? I mean, I think that's fair, right? I mean, there was more screenshots that I saw SoD and or whomever else shared on the Echo Discord between SoD and Northern Light than Northern Light had ever shared. And that's why I'm saying it paints a little different of a picture. It's not to a point where you could say, yeah, this is absolutely clear cut. So I think that's a side of it is, okay, can we see a little bit more? So, okay. Oh yeah. And then I want to point out something that I just thought was a little funny. And then we're going to show you guys some screenshots here. And I don't necessarily think this is going to be, perhaps a long stream, so to speak, but I had a note or two I think I wanted to share. So here we go. So there was some notes here that I had, right? One of my notes is, why did Princess change the title of the video from a fact accusation to a question? And then my second one, right, which is like, why did Princess, Wahid, Dark Jace, and others point the blame at SoD when there was clearly not enough evidence to support? So let me show you some stuff here, right? So this was one of the screenshots, right, that was shared on the stream, right, from what Bunny said in regards to the information that they had found out, right? So, this is, I think, a point that was not brought up during the stream, right? So Bunny says, right, Northern gave access to the account to play row. And I noticed one time that the lights bought 60 daily tickets. I asked SoD if I was allowed to use them to get tokens. He said, yes. I was basically doing daily stuff. Okay. One day I noticed it suddenly dropped a lot, and there was no way because you only use $3 ticket once a day. I opened in-game DMs with SoD and it was there. He was sending himself dragon tickets from the lights account, even though there was a mention of daily tickets up here. There wasn't really anything mentioned about dragon tickets, but okay, that's fine. But just a little discrepancy. So okay, he was sending himself dragon tickets from the lights account. Okay, I mean, to be fair, if he's sending himself dragon tickets and they had been sharing account access for that long, and let's say the lights had came on at any point in time to check the account, whether or not they checked DMs, which again, I guess is part of me feels like that is potentially a little bit of a hard sell to say, like, if you've been inactive for 4+ seasons, you're going to tell me that there was never a time where you logged in and you opened up the chat history between you and SoD, like even one time, and, or even more than one time, and you saw, so I say that because objectively that feels like a hard sell to say, like, even if you, like, let's say you opened it twice and all you saw was reports. Okay. Again, is maybe they're just a misunderstanding, or not a misunderstanding, excuse me. Is there like a misinterpretation, or maybe they just thought that was like normal, like just how business was conducted maybe in the DM history? It's just, I say that because it just sounds a little iffy to me. But okay, right? Let's say they never did. And then the one time that they decided to check the DMs, like, you know what? Maybe I'm seeing this a little bit too much. Let me scroll up. Okay, so maybe that was the one time they actually did. Okay, fair. Right? But he was sending himself dragon tickets from the lights account, spamming the DM with old favorited battle reports. Now, to be fair, you would have to go in, and I don't know if they showed this, but you'd have to go into each of the battle reports and see if the timelines of each battle report lined up or did not line up with the in-game chat timestamp. Now, I think that actually could have been a little bit more, right? Where you get in a situation where, for example, if you showed that, I would argue, like, let's say that Northern goes into the DM history and you have some reports that were sent on October 18th, but the reports are from September or August. Okay, I think you have a little bit more of a position in that case to say, okay, like, yeah, maybe this is now a bit more like fishy in some regards, right? Okay, maybe. Now, again, I feel like you'd have to do that and go through all of them. Again, right, we're being fair to both sides. If you went through all those reports and you said, okay, here's the reports that were sent on this date from an in-game timestamp. The reports are dated as such. And then you looked at the next reports and they were sent on this in-game timestamp in the chat history. And these reports are dated as such. That to me feels like, that would be something there, right? How many unique or different reports are there? Like, those are some questions that I'd have. But okay, right? And then deleting the emails that mention the gifting. I guess my thing is, like, how would you know that the DMs were deleted unless you saw a recall tag in the chat history? Maybe there was. I don't know if I necessarily recall seeing like a message recalled. I also don't know if the message recalled stays up for a certain amount of time and then eventually it disappears. That obviously could have maybe been the case. But I think that would have been something there as well. So, and then I think the other angle here, and like I said in the beginning, I don't think you can necessarily discredit the one side of saying that, well, okay, Bunny was in Echo. Bunny got kicked from Echo. Bunny joins EIS. And then conveniently decides, okay, this is the moment where I'm going to now reach out to Northern to get back at Echo. And then I'm going to conveniently tell Princess and Wahid in the alliance that I've just joined and I'm in that I want them to cover this story. maybe it's just all coincidence. But my point in saying all of that is, I think it's fair to say that is one position, one POV way of looking at the situation where we kind of made that disgruntled play. And that's not to take away from if this is true or not. It's just to say that that was something that I just don't really think a lot of people are really, anyone kind of talked about in a public light, which again, why would they, right? Because they're all kind of a part of the same club at that point. Okay, so here's, we had shown this. So here's the screenshot of me and Light, okay? So we get me asking Light, at least on this account, right? This is one I had asked, January 31. This is like a while ago, right? About asking about wanting to do an interview. And then I had followed up on September 4th asking, right, hey, Northern, thanks for accepting the friend request, right? Because at the time they did. There's been a lot said today. It was mentioned that you and Southern did not want to come forward initially about the situation with SoD. Is that true? Right? And my thought was, okay, well, let me ask a question here so I can try and then lead that into something else, but I need to at least see if I'll actually get a response. So I figured, well, let me just start off with an easy softball of a question here in hopes that I would at least get even if they just replied with yeah, but nothing. And then you see, right, the next timestamp was from yesterday. I had sent in the evening of, hey, just following up, right? Just so you could see that nothing else was said. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't necessarily answer something from back then on the 4th and all this was going on. And you were like, it makes me wonder on, it's not to say that this is a fake account. Because I don't know, right? All I know is that this is the account that appeared, and this is the account that they're saying is Northern. But I don't know anything more than that, right? Now, if Northern, for example, did a screen share with me and showed me the account in real time that they had access to it, but even that, right, might only appear that they have access, but it would still show as an example, okay, yeah, this is the person. Right? Okay, that could have been one thing. Not to say that I'm necessarily going around and asking for that of every single person. I just simply asked a question, didn't get any response. Okay. Now, the next one I want to show is this one. Now, I thought this was very interesting. So I have to show this one first. So this was from Princess's stream. And I want to point out that this, to me, is one of the most telling things of them all. And I don't even know if anyone noticed this. At the time that Princess and Wahid did their YAPCAST stream, notice the title of the video. Okay. Okay, so Scammed by Echo R5. Notice that the way the title is written is that of a fact, is that of a statement, is that of an accusation. Interesting. Okay. It's fair, right? If that's the way that they want to write titles out, all right. But then why is it that if you go and you check the video now, which again, I took the screenshot yesterday, why is there now all of a sudden a question mark? Are you feeling guilty a little bit? Are you feeling unsure of your once confidence that you displayed during your live stream? Why all of a sudden would you now decide to add a question mark, which now turns it into, or from, an accusation statement fact into, did he or did he not? Again, very interesting. Very interesting. As we look. And again, you can see here timestamps from both of these to indicate that it is the live stream. So it just, again, right, really, really interesting here on this one where it's like, wait, what? And even if, for example, let's say you had, and I guess, excuse me, right? Sorry. Here's the live stream. We're already looking at it. Yeah. So, right. So here you go. Here's the live stream where you could see for yourself. I mean, this is in real time, right? So, right. It says streamed 2 weeks ago. It's like, wait, what? So it's like, wait, what? So yeah, it very much threw me off there. And it very much just feels like there's a bigger, just a bigger question there. Yeah. I don't get it. So weird. Yeah. And I mean, you can see in the screenshots here, right? Same video length. There's no different. 208.33, 208.33. Here's the video here. And I remember covering the video when the live stream title, or excuse me, tuning into the live stream, right? When the title was issued. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, there was no question mark. So my point in saying this is that this to me indicates that you either had some kind of change of heart or you didn't want the video to be portrayed as a statement, accusation, fact, and therefore you changed one part of the title to turn it to go from that to, okay, well, did he do it or did he not do it? Okay. It's just, there's no need for that at any point, right? Stick to your guns. Don't flip-flop. If you feel the way you feel and what you said on the stream, then be confident. So it's just like to me, and some people may not think that's a big thing. To me, I think that's a big thing because it immediately shifts the entire tone and belief of what she felt in the moment versus what she felt afterwards. Okay. Lastly, I want to read, and then we're going to read some, and then we're going to check it on chat. I want to read some comments that, and I want to be clear here again, right? Because I've said this a couple times so far. I absolutely do not care beyond a shadow of a doubt who is right and who is wrong. I don't put my stock in one side or the other. I'm not planting my flag in anyone's field. Don't care. But what I do care about, and I'll continue to say it, is that you at least get to hear the other side. Even if hearing from the other side is not exactly, I'm sure, what some of you would have liked to hear or like to have shown. I think, myself included, what I have liked to be able to show the screenshots, even if I had redacted or had clipped out certain pieces, absolutely. Would I have loved to be able to, sit down with SoD and do a convo with him? Would I have liked to be able to get a direct quote from SoD? Absolutely. This is not to say that I am fine with the situation. No, I still feel like I'm missing out. Not only from SoD and the Echo perspective, but I also feel like I'm missing out from the Northern Light and or Southern Light and or just the Light's perspective on questions I would like to ask that I feel like would tell us a little bit more. So I'm just left at this point unfulfilled, and it kind of sucks. So let me share. I want to share some comments here that were made on the video I did of SoD's response. So make her go, I'm just reading this now, make her go purr. That's actually pretty good. That's funny. Okay. So we have the comment here, right, says, I don't like Echo or SoD, but people share accounts and fund each other so often in this game. This sounds like a classic case of what happens when close friends, or I guess you could say business partners, that aren't working together or are friends anymore. Okay. And I think, like I said, this is this person's take, but I think the business partner and the relationship portion that we spoke about earlier is a large part of what we don't know enough about. right? We only know what limited information has been shown. When money and sharing accounts is involved, it is so easy for outsiders, us, myself, who don't know SoD or the lights personally, to misinterpret what was actually going on at the time. Even though I want to see the number one Alliance finally meet their match as much as anyone else. I mean, damn, that's rough. Okay. Damn. Is there really just like a number one Alliance? Like we're just down with your down with you syndrome? Not syndrome, but just like belief bandwagoning that goes on. Like just no matter who it is. I highly doubt any crime or scamming happened here. All right. Anyone with a brain whose judgment isn't clouded by a hidden agenda or emotion would easily be able to tell. Although this could be painted to look like something horrible happened, it is extremely likely nothing did. And if you can't think for yourself, then answer me this question. If SoD really scammed his friend, why in the world would he still have access and be able to continue playing on that said account he scammed on so long after it happened up until just recently? After you answer that question, it becomes pretty clear, because would you continue to give access to someone who scammed you so long after? Obviously not. My guess is SoD and the Lights just grew apart after some time, and whoever made this story abused the fact that this relationship could have easily been misinterpreted to their advantage to push a narrative. I mean, I think regardless if you agree or disagree with that take, I think it is a fair assessment of one view on the situation as a whole for how it could be interpreted, just as much as the narrative provided by the Northern Light that SoD scammed them is one interpretation or one position, even if it is the main position that's been pushed. And again, it's not to say I agree or disagree, but I do at least agree that this is one point of view. And I think that there's a couple things in here that I do absolutely agree with, which is that from outsiders who don't know SoD or the Lights personally to misinterpret what was actually going on at the time, we don't know anything. We absolutely do not know anything about the situation. We don't know anything about the history, about whatever the specific relationship was between SoD and the Lights. And again, I just think it's absolutely funny that some people are just like taking their ball and running with it, man. And it's like, you guys are just ready. Some people are just already on the side of crucifying SoD and or by extension Echo, or even just the people that were involved without something that you really could consider to be a smoking gun, something that is just so justifiably absolute that there's just no questions right there whatsoever. Okay. But again, that's one opinion. Okay. So here's another one, right? This one had 25 votes, right? This is from DeLauren. DeLauren says, this is the exact response I was waiting for from SoD. There is zero proof of whom bought these specific Dragon tickets, which we know now I know now. And anyone who has seen the screenshots knows that at least some of them, again, being fair, at least some of them, SoD did purchase, again, via the screenshot receipts I had seen. But okay. A relationship was in full swing between SoD and the Lights via the payments, which I'm not even sure is a real photo, previous vid. Take it how y'all want, but friendships end and people get upper ends and lower ends of them. This is not scamming or anything bad. It is the end of a relationship and that's it. Also, very agreed on the Princess summary. It started being but then ended in vicious accusations against someone they all are not in good favor with and have ample reason to say things in a defamatory way. And, I think the first part here on there not being proved. Now, keep in mind, right, I don't necessarily think that there's a large portion of people that are calling into question, did SoD or did the Lights purchase those tickets that were transferred as far as being the bigger storyline than, well, it's believed that SoD had purchased them and then transferred them. Now, I think it still would be nice to see exactly who maybe purchased all of them, but do I think that it's going to go that far? Do I think that we're going to see every single transfer that was made throughout the entire DM history, and that is going to show and be able to line up for every single transfer that was made? Because again, I don't know if there was more that were made beyond October 18th of last year. So that would be a question to ask. And then I think DeLauren's point, which again, right, this was my take, right? DeLauren agreeing with, my take on the Princess EIS video summary is that a little bit, is that I think it's, and like I said, this is not to say, and again, I will preface this appropriately. I don't know Princess that well, so I don't know how she is as a person. I don't know Wahid that well, so I don't know how she is as a person. I can only speak to what transpired and what went down on the YAPCAST live stream and episode. And how it came across to me was exactly how DeLauren summarized. Now, I believe it would have been different, and it could have been different, if they chose to take, let's just say, a more professional approach, where there was an attempt to reach out to both sides, or if it was to remain objective, which means neutral, which means not leaning into one side or the other, and just simply shared what was brought to their attention. But then clearly stating throughout that we would love to hear from the other side. This is just us sharing one side of it. We don't know who to believe. You maybe could have got away with that at bare minimum. But I think what's important to take away is that that was not how it came off to a number of people, myself included. And that's where I think there was an absolute disservice to, I don't even know if you would even call this coverage, respectfully. I think you would call this finger pointing and blaming. Okay, but okay, let's read another one. So here's a screenshot, which is a little bit longer, but I actually really loved this person's take. And I don't know who this is, but I thought that this was very well articulated, and I wanted to read it. So this was posted by 31XX-714, who said, as a normal player from a newer server in the game that doesn't have any ties to either side involved, I want to give everyone what I'm seeing looking from the outside in. Okay, well, number one, the amount of money that is said that SoD scammed is so minuscule in compared to how much he spends on resource healing alone every season that I had the chance to spectate. 80 million to 100 million merits is very costly, and consistently hitting that quota makes the total amount of money per season almost unholy. There just isn't any clear motive. This claim is equivalent to the example of a millionaire robbing a corner store for $200, but being unbiased and having good faith in the accusers, anything could happen. It is not impossible for people to act without motive. And again, I think that, like, when I read that, I thought to myself, well, this makes a lot of sense. And again, this isn't to say we believe one side or the other, but I think objectively, this point logically makes sense. Okay? So, right? And I think at the end of the day, what they're saying is, like, SoD spends a lot of money, right? He obviously spent a lot of money on the account. Clearly there is some kind of reimbursement that's happening, right? And this is not to say, let's be very clear here. This is not to say that for anyone out there being like, okay, well, it's okay just to send resources from your account to another, or it's okay to send something that you didn't purchase with your own money to. No, we're not saying that. What we are saying is that based on this person's response, which could be valid, all it does is further go into the narrative that there is obviously more to the story. And if you're watching and you've been here since we started, I hope you at least take that away, is that there's more to the story. And there is definitely a decent bit of gray area here that we just don't know enough about. Okay. Number 2. I believe I heard that Bunny was kicked right before this story came out. I didn't get to hear for what reason, but motive for revenge is easily probable. And EIS, who first covered this story, has everything to gain trying to smear his name in the mud. I mean, to be fair, I think that's a fair point. Now, I think it would have been different, right? It's almost like it's a conflict of interest, right? So I think when you look at, I think that's the word you would use. Now, it would have been different if, let's say, maybe Guns covered this, or if maybe Burgess or someone else covered it that wasn't directly involved in it, that didn't have anything to gain at all. I think that's a side of it that you can easily argue, is that because there is a conflict of interest, you need to go above and beyond in your due diligence, in the level of care and the professional courtesy that you extend to both sides, in order for it to not come off, as this person said, as like a smear campaign. Or I should say, as it could come off to some people. Again, let's be fair. Okay. So, right, trying to smear his name in the mud, if you aren't able to beat your enemy in a fair war, then control of public opinion is fair game to an extent. While SoD has nearly nothing to gain from scamming tickets, which, I mean, I don't know. Like, and I guess that's a good question. What does SoD have to gain over scamming tickets? Like, I don't know. I guess you'd have to dive into like his financial records, and it's like, okay, is he dirt poor? Is he hemorrhaging money? But he's still deciding to spend consistent money in the game on someone else's account. Okay, is there like a money spending problem? Like, I mean, you'd have to like really figure some stuff out at that point. Okay, maybe. Showing, right, because rather than showing, oh wait, here we go. Where do we leave off here? Okay, right, side, none of these other things giving tickets. The risk far outweighs any profit. The evidence that EIS or Bunny showed is circumstantial at best. I think that's fair, because again, I do think it leans into one side of like, okay, that's pretty questionable from SoD. And we've stated that as well before. And it was hard to watch that EIS stream because rather than showing clear evidence, it was diluted with opinions from personal vendetta and grudges. I mean, we definitely heard some of those. Whether those were vendettas or grudges, we heard some things from some people that everything kind of leaned in one direction. Or guest speakers who had no relation to this case at all. Example, saying that your reason for believing SoD scammed someone is because you dislike him or don't agree with his decisions or views weakens any real evidence shown prior. Absolutely. I think it's the same thing as what we talked about when we listened to the Jason clip of Jason stating that, firstly, SoD had never done anything during their time together that would make him believe that could happen. But then in the very next second part of the sentence, he says, oh yeah, but I could see him doing that. It's just like, what are we doing at that point, man? Okay. Facts and receipts should be countered with facts and receipts. Okay. There is no room for personal opinion when judging a case of defamation or accused scamming. I think that's fair. We look at number 3. In the evidence, screenshots, transactions, customer support chat logs, and random messages SoD provided show, and again, this person I believe is referring to the screenshots that they had provided, that I know, I will say this, I know other people outside of Echo have access to these screenshots. Not to say that I know everyone, but I know of at least a few people. With that being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that this person is from Echo or from outside of Echo. I just wanted to at least state that because it's just not clear on either side. Okay, then we get, let me see here. Okay, so then we get random messages, spending and transfer of, oh, here we go. Yes, right. So acknowledge the spending SoD provided showed that lights acknowledge the spending and transfer of funds is nice to see since SoD responded with clear evidence instead of he said, she said, or personal opinion. If there is more to the story, then I'm hoping AS and Bunny can put together an even more clear-cut case to refute SoD's evidence and claims. If they don't respond or try to refute this evidence, then myself, along with most of the community spectating, will most likely come to the conclusion that Bunny or AS can't provide any more evidence, which would be scary in itself when the image and reputation of the #1 High King in the game is at stake. That would show everyone just how easy it is to tear someone down without having rock solid evidence to refute every reply or rebuttal. I would like to give benefit of the doubt to EIS, having more evidence being able to support their claims. Since this is such a big story, I can't imagine anyone would make these bold claims without at least a couple layers of insurance so the claims that were made don't backfire and ruin the trust of the community by fabricated stories. Yeah. Oh, I guess I could take these off now. I don't know why I still have these on. All right. It's getting so hot back here. My back is sweating. Anyways, excuse me. Right. So okay. So this was one other response, and I think like I said, as I've been saying, I think it's important, right? We want to be fair on both sides, and I think a part of this point 3, I think is, I think fairly speaking, I think is correct. There just hasn't been enough that has been provided to where you can say overwhelmingly, like, yeah, like this is exactly what happened. And I think if you're going to make such a claim, you have to be able to prove that without a shadow of a doubt. There was another comment Polon made saying this wasn't just yapping. This was an attack from Bunny and his new friends in EIS and some random named Jessica. I love how you made it sound like it was some like person from like back in like the BC century, because he was just salty that SoD is just. You guys come up with your comments, man. Dream Big Boy said, "This is a big lesson for Princess unless it was done intentionally." And I think, like I said, for me, that I think those are some of my biggest takeaways. Is that at this point, I don't know who to believe. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. But I think what I do know and what I believe, and that's, what I feel, is that there's not, I haven't seen enough at this point. And I think because we haven't seen enough at this point to indicate what the lights have claimed and what Princess and Wahid said on their stream, it's just, I think that's the part that kind of hurts the most, is that, and again, we probably sound like a broken record at this point, but just the fact that some people think and believe that there was enough, that there has been enough shown here to indicate that SoD did truly scam the lights, I think is absolutely hilarious. It almost makes you wonder, like, do some people know like just how a court system works, like how you like just and maybe even not that. Let's even take it away from like the courts and the law. Like, do people just like know how to prove a point? Like, do you know how to prove something as truly a fact? Because I'll tell you how you don't do it. How you don't do it is by only sharing one side of a story without hearing from the other side. And your primary evidence source is a video that shows dragon tickets being transferred and reports being shown, but no text conversations at all, nothing else, no voice conversations, no just anything else that would indicate that SoD did this intentionally and had any kind of motive or reason for scamming the lights when he has a big account of him. It's just, there's just too many questions. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, maybe there's something else out there that just absolutely proves it and really is like, man, here's the real smoking gun. But again, on the other side, like we've said, to be fair, does it also make you question, why those things were done in the DM chat history by SoD with Northern? Sure. I think that's fair to say. But I just don't see anything that is overwhelmingly like, oh yeah, he did it. Here it all is. It's clear as day. Like you got to show me, you got to show me some more. You got to show me some more. Yeah. 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 It's just rough, man. It's like, and again, that's the tricky thing when you're covering a story, and especially when you're a content creator, there is almost so much more onus put on you. And there's almost so much more responsibility and accountability that is put on you if you are going to come out and make such an accusation when you only have a little bit of evidence. That isn't enough to paint a clear picture. So, again, that's where I will leave it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate the time. Again, I'd be happy to go a little bit longer. I know I said I was going to read some live chat. Unfortunately, I have... Unfortunately, I got the kiddos. I shouldn't say unfortunately. I should say that fortunately, I do have the kiddos coming over here in a little bit, so I will have to cut this one short. But again, right, where I will end things with and where I'll leave you with is, as I've stated all stream long. Doesn't matter to me who's right, who's wrong. My whole thing was I at least just wanted to share a second side, which was the Echo side from what I had been okayed with their team to share, and then talk about how the coverage of the accusation played out and what my thoughts are on that and the situation as a whole, and share with you some feedback from the community. All right. It's essentially up to you to decide, what, I guess, part of the fence or part of the land that you decide you want to side with or to be on at that point. But yeah, like I said, I feel like I've done at least, what I hope to do. And, if any more comes out from it, so be it. But I think at that point, it would most likely be up to SoD and or the Echo team to share, right? Anything more than that. Yeah. That's it for me. Thank you guys so much. And again, I really appreciate those that wanted to tune in and at least hear a little bit, right? And as I said, I know it wasn't a lot. I know it wasn't enough because I know even I feel unfulfilled, right, on both sides, and especially wanting to be able to share and see a little bit more as well from both sides. But again, that's where I'm at, or I should say that's where we're at. So again, I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.